Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Future Ready Airport Kiosks, 3 Trends in Transforming the Passenger Journey webinar presented by Zebra and imageHOLDERS and hosted by Networld Media Group. Airport kiosks have come a long way from check-in and boarding passes. Today, we'll look at 3 trends shaping the passenger journey: one-step versus two-step processes, accessibility innovations, and portable solutions. I'm Sandra Carpenter, editor of Kiosk Marketplace and Vending Times. Joining us are Richard Thompson from Zebra Technologies and Christian Bosens from imageHOLDERS, who will share how airport kiosks can boost efficiency, accessibility, and flexibility with next-generation self-service. After their presentation, they will hold a live question and answer session, so feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box throughout the webinar. Let's go ahead and dive in.
Thank you, Sandra. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everybody on the webinar. I'm Richard Thompson from Zebra Technologies. So we're in the middle of a massive aviation technology revolution. AI, biometrics, computer vision, edge, and even quantum computing are reshaping passenger journeys. IATA projects that by 2037, there will be 8.5 billion global passengers, which is almost double that of 2019. That need for growth means efficiency, inclusivity, and resilience aren't optional, they're survival. And one of our key partners here at Zebra, helping customers to navigate the ever-changing landscape, is imageHOLDERS. And I'm very happy to have the experienced Christian Bosens on with me today to explore this in more detail. Christian, we've known each other for a good while now, but I'll let you introduce yourself, and then maybe we can touch on how imageHOLDERS are adapting to assist customers and leverage new technologies to solve for life in the aviation space.
Certainly. Thank you, Richard. It's a privilege to be here, and thank you to Zebra for bringing me alongside such a living legend in the hardware world that Richard is. So yeah, hi everyone. I'm Christian Bosens. I've been part of the imageHOLDERS vast and rapid growth over the last 10 years. I sit as part of the sales team, wearing account director and solution consultant hats. And I've looked after the aviation space for most of my time here, and I have to say it's actually still one of the most exciting, fast-paced, innovative sectors I get to work on. So again, I'm excited to be here, and hopefully everyone can get some good value and insights out of the session. So just to tell you a little bit about imageHOLDERS to kick off, and then I'll relate back to it throughout the webinar. We are UK-based, headquarters here down south, just outside Bournemouth. We've got offices and manufacturing also in North America, Central Europe, Far East, and we'll soon be celebrating our 12th birthday. Our company's mission is to create user-centric, fully accessible solutions that offer intuitive and automated user journeys. But it's actually our approach that sets us aside from others in the market, and as Richard said, making us an interesting partner to work with. We are very much design-led, which is different to most of the kiosk manufacturers out there, we find, and we collaborate with our partners and clients from concept to completion, and we truly mean it. It's not just a marketing line. You know, I've looked after the likes of United Airlines and literally sat in a room and co-designed custom checking kiosks with their teams to ensure we produce solutions that meet all of their needs, both today and into the future. That, of course, means that nearly everything that leaves our imageHOLDERS factory door is unique in some shape or form, but that's because we don't believe there can be a one-size-fits-all approach to self-service digital endpoints. Now, when I mention that we do custom kiosks to customers, they automatically think long lead time, and that's not what they're after. But that isn't the case. We leverage a really clever and truly modular product architecture, which means we can help get bespoke kiosks to the market fast. I always kind of describe our modules like Lego bricks, right? Everyone knows Lego. We have all of these bricks around us, and previous examples of how we've used different bricks to create solutions in the past. That could be to solve this use case, that use case. And then when we speak to new customers or we speak to customers about new projects, we might build an entirely new combination of those bricks to create a solution, or suggest that something that we've done before could fit their needs with just a small tweak, changing 1 or 2 blocks. But there's also sometimes we identify that we need to build a new Lego block, something that isn't in our repertoire as such, but we can do that quite quickly and integrate new technologies and devices into a new kiosk configuration just by developing that 1 or 2 new blocks, which means we're extremely agile and enables that fast to market benefit. The modular approach also means that our solutions are future-proof, because adding or retrofitting new technology can be as simple as adding another Lego block, which in turn also vastly drives down the cost of ownership, because we make everything super simple to install and maintain by designing out complexity. We've had customers come to us and report more than a 90% reduction in total cost of ownership between our kiosks and their legacy hardware, which is a big stat. So by taking this approach as well, it also means that we don't suffer from long R&D cycles that mean by the time a product hits the shelf, it's 2, 3, 4 years old already.
Right, and the advantages of that I've seen myself firsthand, and that also ties in with how you share your knowledge and expertise, doesn't it? I've seen image holders move away from somewhat a thought leadership or what has happened, and much more into a world of insight leadership, where we start to shape what's next, what's coming next, which is exactly why we're keen to partner with you and to create the white paper that we're discussing here today. So, should we jump into some of those trends then?
Yeah, let's do it. So step 1 and step 2 journeys was the first trend that we wrote about. So to explain the differences between those, traditionally airports have operated as a 2-step process. So that's where the first stage is where the passenger goes to check in, their IDs are validated, boarding passes printed, and sometimes bag tags supplied. The passenger would then need to leave that position and go and find a bag drop counter, which might be right next to the check-in desk, but more often than not is located in a different area of the airport. And that's where they need to take their bags and drop off their luggage. We're now seeing, and have seen for a fair few years, especially across Europe, a much more streamlined setup geared towards more of a 1-step process. This has been enabled by huge uptake in the amount of passengers now checking in online before getting to the airport. And we've seen kind of reports back from airlines and airports showing that around 70% of passengers are already checked in as they arrive. That's from the US, with the number being closer to kind of 80% across Europe and Asia. We're also seeing, some airlines now charging extra on top of your basic ticket rate if you do not check in online. So, your likes of your budget airlines see that as another revenue stream, and they are pushing everyone to go in online. There's obviously a lot of technology sat in the background to help make that a fairly new process in the aviation world, like online ID verification and biometrics matching. But the main driver, I would say, has been the airlines themselves transforming their digital systems to help push as many passengers as they can online and ahead of the passenger traveling. So if passengers have done that and they're already checked in, a 1-step process enables them to skip the check-in desk queue and head straight to a bag drop, where they would present their boarding card, which they might have printed at home, it might be on their mobile device. And at that point, they're issued with their bag tags, which they'd secure to their luggage and then induct them into the airport's baggage system. And that's where we're seeing mass adoption of SSBD. So SSBD is self-service bag drop. And in terms of the kiosk, that's where features such as a scanning device initially will be used to identify the passenger via their boarding pass and ask their baggage to be placed on the belt. Whilst the passenger goes back to the screen and answers any relevant security questions, no scissors, whatever, dangerous liquids on board, did you pack it yourself? The bag is then weighed and then recorded against that passenger. The printed bag tags will come out if approved. The customer then attaches that bag tag onto the bag that's on the belt. And they will either be manually scanned using a handheld barcode scanner, or actually we're working on things where the kiosk the belt itself has things like intelligent cameras or wide-angle scanning lenses to look for that tag and activate it as it starts its journey into the baggage system. So those kiosks can come in a range of form factors as well, which suit different infrastructures, environments, and the budget of each airport and airline. For example, we do freestanding kiosks that stand in front of the existing belts and infrastructure, and we even have kind of over-the-belt solutions that make use of what would be dead space above those baggage belts.
Excellent. So what would you say, Christian, in summary, what are the main benefits to an airport adopting that one-step strategy?
I would say, I mean, there's lots. Initially, you've got to be looking at the kind of lower staff costs. If you don't need that check-in desk, which is essentially half of the two-step process, that's a lot less positions that need to be manned. Also, by bringing staff away from behind the counters and into more of a kind of concierge style role, it means one member of staff can oversee multiple kiosk positions, just like they might do in your local supermarket, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, they all do it. But by doing that and being in more of a concierge style on the passenger side, you can also elevate the passenger experience by having more of a human-to-human contact element in the process. And that is very, very important in terms of the user journey and customer experience within the airports, all the way through from budget airlines up to business and first class. Also, space saving. I've said the removal of the majority of check-in desks makes a lot of space to implement essentially double the amount of self-service bag drops. Which can help reduce queues, and also that then leads into faster processing and better efficiencies of those passengers through to the security line. And we've seen airports reporting these benefits already. Some are coming back to us and saying, a 40% reduction in the time it takes from a passenger entering the front door of the airport and passing through to the security line. And we've actually been talking to a number of airlines that are targeting that process to take no more than 15 minutes as a kind of benchmark.
15 minutes. That's a big change. But I guess, one thing I think a number of people I'm sure on the call will relate to. I mean, I flew recently and I skipped the check-in queue because I'd already checked in online, as you mentioned earlier, and I didn't need to go to the check-in desk. But I just found another queue at the bag drop point.
Yeah.
How do you address that?
Yeah, and we see that from airport customers and the airports themselves. We're constantly challenged with that. It's more, I would say, driven by the airports that are still in between a 1- and 2-step passenger process, because in a lot of cases, the infrastructure changes take years to complete, and they're forced into somewhat of a halfway house, which, as you've experienced, results in the queue or bottleneck just moving from the check-in area over to a different area of the airport. But if you were to fly to somewhere new, Richard, that have purpose-built those areas for a one-step airport, you'd probably be challenged to find those queues. Ultimately, all the airports are driving towards more people through the airport quicker, without negatively affecting the user experience. So queues, obviously, nobody likes a queue. And to do that, it sounds simple, but it's far from it, especially with like legacy systems, some outdated legislation, and constraints and expense around building bigger terminals. There's lots of airports that have got as big as they can be, so they just need to leverage the technology that's out there within the space that they already have, which actually is a nice little segue into another trend that we wrote about, which is portability. Quite a new trend, and a lot of our customers come to us asking for portable kiosks to use them as more of a temporary position. So they move them into areas of the airport that might have more space and capacity to temporarily manage passenger flow while those infrastructure and improvements are underway. And I think we've got a couple of our newest portable units up on screen at the moment, so you can see all of the normal devices that you would expect within kind of check-in and bag tagging, and a lot of uses for IROPS. So irregular operations where something like a weather issue or a power outage has rendered a terminal or a bunch of gates inoperable. So the airport has to find some way of reprocessing passengers quickly onto new gates or flights. Sometimes issuing them new boarding passes, etc. And typically that ends up in hordes of people surrounding understaffed desks and havoc ensued. We've all seen those videos on social media, right? So to avoid that, we try and empower airlines and airports to roll out self-service kiosks to help handle that situation. And these, as you can see on screen, the bottom section there, they can be battery powered, ridding the need to find a power point, which are generally in use by a passenger casually charging their phone or tablet, as we all know. They can also have mobile communications ability built in, so whether that is a Wi-Fi or a cellular network connection, they are integral to it to ensure that the systems, the software that are on these kiosks can reliably speak to the systems they need to in order to properly process the passenger. You can see from the design as well, they're designed to be easily rolled into place and locked in the location that they're needed while remaining accessible. So once they've helped whatever situation there is, they can be unlocked, quickly roll back into storage and plugged in to rapidly recharge for when the next issue might come up for the airport. And in fact, in the future, that could all be AI controlled, harnessing fun things like robotics and geolocation. But that's another point for another day. So going back to your point, so getting back to how these kiosks can be used to manage the airport's infrastructure transition over to one step, we've seen those customers using portable versions of their kind of fixed kiosks to provide passengers with the functionality they need in temporary locations without having to endure the expense and hassle of doing things like coring new power and data lines into the airport floor, which can very quickly add up. You're talking at least $1,000, $2,000 or more per meter in most airports, and for something that might only need to be there for a relatively short time, it's a no-brainer. So we've also got customers using portable kiosks when planning new layouts or testing new passenger flows, road testing those kiosk positions with different journeys in mind before they commit to permanently fixing down kiosks in place, which doubles down as an advantage when the airlines are well aware. Most airports will be adopting or looking to adopt a single-step process eventually, and don't want additional costs to move them again when the airport is ready to, change the process.
Right. Makes a huge amount of sense. Fantastic products. I think they're brilliant. But I guess key to getting all of those passengers through the airport as quickly and efficiently as possible is you need to make sure technology is available to all types of passengers that are traveling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So trend number 2 from the white paper is all around accessibility, something that's non-negotiable to us here at imageHOLDERS, and something that we're proud to say has been at the forefront of our design considerations since day one. And as you touched on, Richard, the kiosk's purpose is to securely house the devices that provide the functionality needed at that digital endpoint. But unless it's designed in an accessible way, it renders it null and void to some users. To put some numbers behind it, if we take the US, there are around 10 to 20% roughly of the population living with a disability. Some of those are physical, wheelchair users, those with limited or no sight or hearing, and others that can't be seen as well. So, dyslexia, dyspraxia. A truly accessible kiosk should be able to handle all users, and actually legislation is now catching up to make sure that is the case from a legal standpoint. We've seen inquiries come to us from customers that have previously been pulled up on not meeting those standards. So ADA in America, American Disability Act, compliance on their legacy kiosks, and other new solutions to meet the new EAA, which is the European equivalent across Europe. And those laws came in June earlier this year, and they stipulate that all new technology solutions and kiosks alike are compliant at the point of install, which is really good to see. So to enable our kiosks to be accessible, we integrate purpose-built physical devices and add additional accessibility features such as active labels, 3D audio, directional microphones, braille stickers, and we work very closely with the market leaders and trusted partners on the software side as well, to interface into those devices to whatever software is running on them. So we work with the likes of Storm, Jaws, TGPI, Dolphin, and the RNIB to ensure that our solutions are the very best they can be for all users. The latter of those actually RNIB. You can see the logo on the slide. We've been working with them for a number of years and now actually been awarded their tried and tested certification, which we're very, very proud with. This is kind of all on top of making sure our kiosks are within the height and reach guidelines, which you can see roughly shown on the slide there. We make sure all physical touch points are within the limits, and we even solve for the parts of the screen that might fall outside these bounds by working with the software vendors to make sure all of the touchable buttons are actually within the bounds of the height compliance. So you can see the unit on the left there and the unit on the right, you don't have the whole screen in place, but by dynamically moving the interface round, all of the touchable elements are within reach. And then I guess the other side to accessibility, which a lot of people don't consider, is catering for passengers who might find themselves digitally excluded. So hopefully this didn't happen to you, Richard, on your recent travels, but let's say you had lost your phone on the way to the airport, or you had a flat battery. Without kiosks in the airport, you'd be stuffed. The same goes for passengers or groups from different demographics who might not have a smartphone or maybe share one between a whole family, in which case the whole digital check-in approach is made very difficult, in some cases impossible. So a kiosk, in whatever form it takes, check-in, bag drop, can provide access to that technology needed for seamless travel for those that are digitally excluded. Which in turn makes kiosks, a necessity in all airports for a long time to come. And we recently did something along these lines. This is outside of the aviation space, but something we're very proud of. So we worked with the Citizens Advice Bureau in Rotherham that were solving to this exact point. So they have a lot of customers that come to them, either go into the offices or speak to them on a telephone and say, I don't have access, I don't have internet access, I don't have a smartphone. They then came to us, Citizen Advice, and said, we want to make our services accessible to all. So by working with some local doctors' surgeries, we could then actually put in some devices, again with some accessibility devices attached, which enabled users that wouldn't necessarily be able to go online to walk into a GP surgery and access all of the brilliant stuff that Citizens Advice can provide.
Wow. Well, listen, thank you for all of that, Christian. Conscious you've done a lot of speaking there. Thank you for the insights so far. I think we'll give you a bit of a well-earned break and get some audience participation going if we can. So we're going to try and run a poll here. Hopefully technology stays with us. So to all of those listening and watching, those are the first three trends as you've seen in our white paper, hopefully, or you can see in the white paper if you want to download it after this webinar. And we'd like to get your feedback. Which of those hot trends, the accessibility, moving to one-step processing, or portability, do you see as the most urgent for your operations? So please place your votes now, and we will come back to those votes and the results of those votes in a little bit later in the session. Thank you. So, while Zebra have scanning technology, and we've been, discussing that already. There are many other complementary technologies which image holders combine, I know, Christian, into your kiosks to make the user journey even more seamless. The use of which have been accelerated, I know we've discussed a number of times since the pandemic. So while we're all here, what are those tech trends that have hit your radar that we can expect to see more and more of in the airports over the coming years?
Yeah, sure. And I think the big one is biometrics, isn't it? Whether it be facial recognition using camera technology or things like palm scanners, finger vein scanners, they're all playing a part in the next generation of travel and travel kiosks. I think it was CETA recently reported 75% of all airports and 85% of airlines plan biometric ID management by 2027. And that's a big number. And on the passenger side of things, IATA found that 63% of passengers say the use of biometrics can make them feel safer, which of course plays into the airports and airlines target to boost that passenger experience and gain their trust. In terms of how that plays into a check-in and bag drop kiosk situation, so image holders, we harness some clever things like multi-lens camera technology from the likes of Intel, HID, for example, that ensure a good image is created by combining standard things like RGB capture and infrared images, and then combine them to make sure there's enough detail to be used by the biometric processing in the background. Which can be affected quite a lot in airports by the lighting. So, in the airport environment, there is more and more glass being used in the architecture of these ginormous buildings, and that proves to be quite a difficult thing for the cameras to deal with if it was only using a single point of truth. So by combining those different technologies, you actually get a really good image that the biometrics software can then run. It also opens up a few new use cases for us that weren't around before this shift. So things like onboarding. So to onboard passengers into a contactless journey using biometrics. Those kiosks essentially consist of an ID device that reads your passport or your ID card and matches your live presence at the kiosk to the biometric information stored on your passport. That information, if approved, can then get tokenized and anonymized or pseudonymized to be used at each kiosk checkpoint, whether it be security or boarding. The passenger's face is scanned automatically and green lighted through the airport without the need to touch anything, essentially, which I'm excited about. That's going to play into getting more people through the airports quicker, like we touched on earlier. And we're also working on retrofittable biometric stations that can quickly check in passengers or identify them at bag drop points and check-in desks, again, with reduced touch points for the customer.
Fantastic. Amazing technologies coming along. But whilst those amazing technologies are coming, I think it's also, I guess, key for me that I think, biometrics and doesn't replace the simplicity and existence of scanning as it sits there at the moment. I think they enhance one another and they sit alongside one another, but you've got to have fallbacks, you've got to have compliance, you've got to have security. How do you see that, Christian?
Yeah, completely agree, and it's a massive and important point. Biometric solutions aren't a silver bullet. They've come a long way, but they still have a lot to prove. And I agree. There should always be fallback. So there are projects out there that seem to be only be usable by passengers enrolled into those contactless programs. But as part of the image holders process, we're actively challenging some of those requirements to ensure that we don't forget about things like accessibility. Going back to the previous point around digital exclusion and ensuring that we have those fallback technologies like barcode or QR code scanning in our kiosks to enable the customer to use them as and when needed. Another example for multiple device requirements to support biometrics, especially around bag drop, is that you sometimes need to revalidate your identity at the point of bag drop in a 1 or 2 step setup. And I guess that that nicely brings us on to another future trend that I know we wanted to talk about, which takes us away from the human passenger. It looks at everyone's prized possessions inside their luggage. So I'll let you do some talking on this one, Richard.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Christian. Yeah, so maybe one of the more exciting new developments we've been working on together, Zebra and imageHOLDERS, is to tackle challenges in and around baggage handling, which costs the aviation world in the region of $2.5 billion a year, something like 26 million mishandled bags every year. One of the ways we can solve to this is automated baggage dimensioning. So what's that, people may ask? So it's bags placed onto an integrated weigh scale in the imageHOLDER solution. And then the bag is 3D scanned to capture the dimensions using Zebra's Aurora Vision software solution. That data can be used in a number of ways. Using what we call a bounding box, we can check compliance to size requirements and charge if that's appropriate or applicable. And then at the kiosk, creating an instant revenue stream, potentially, if that's what the desire of the customer is. But it also can help the airlines anticipate things like oversubscription of things like how many bags are going to go into overhead lockers on board an aircraft, which, as we all know and we all experience, is certainly a challenge. And it can slow down boarding, and it can lead to bags going missing and unhappy customers, etc. And it can even lead into causing delays to the flights leaving on time and the airlines being charged for that disruption, which is something the airlines are, kind of very focused on avoiding.
Yeah. Ironically, Richard, that happened to me coming back from an aviation show, PTE, in Madrid last year.
Nice.
I was on the jet bridge. The person in front of me and 20 people behind me were asked to give up our hand luggage so they could put it in the hold. Lo and behold, it didn't get put in the hold. So yeah, fully know where you're coming from there. And there's also, I mean, while we're talking about baggage, there's also a new kind of trend we're seeing around bag health. So kiosks can, again, using cameras or scanning technology, we can record images as well as the ones being dimensioned and all of their data points at the point of induction. I guess the main benefits, again, there are lots of benefits of doing stuff like that, but preventing disputes between airlines, airport, and passengers. So if there's a record and there's evidence, there's a photo that could highlight a pre-existing damage, for example, the airport can prove that it hasn't happened on that leg of the journey. Also, from the passenger side, you gain their trust by taking a photo and telling the customer what you're doing with that photo. Can reassure customers that their luggage is actually important to the airline. Different, again, to what you might see on social media and those videos. Again, operational efficiency, very important through all of the things that we talked about today. And at the end of it, if there's less processing, if there's less claims, there's less time spent processing those claims, which you get efficiencies from. The data point that you mentioned is an interesting one. You can take that data and you can look at the different trends within that to say, how often out of all of your flights do bags arrive in poor condition? Are you finding that all flights from a particular destination arrive in a poor condition? What types of bag are most prone to damage? Peak times for baggage issues, and then looking at all that data, it can help airlines improve their baggage handling and even advise the customers, the passengers flying on those airlines, on things like best luggage choices. And then I guess to finish that off, there are a lot of legacy systems out there. If there are damaged bags going into the system, they themselves could cause a breakdown of those baggage belts. So if you can prevent them being entered into the system in the first place, that's going to, again, prevent any delays or issues as soon as it goes in.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you, Richard and Christian. I think that we want to display the poll results. Let's take a look. So it's looking like the most important is portable solutions with 42%, And the second most is accessibility innovations with 35%. And then one step versus two step with 21%. And before we go into the Q&A, there's still some time for our attendees to go ahead and drop your questions in that Q&A box, but we do have just a few to get us started. I'll go ahead and ask the first question that we've got. With more
Quite interesting. Those. Sorry, Sandra. I was just going to say on those results. It's quite interesting that. I mean, from a legal standpoint, I was expecting accessibility to be the most popular, but looking at portable solutions is one there. And
I think, Christian, that those portable solutions are, I think to a certain degree addressing what I think a lot of people knew was already a challenge, but but you've built solutions now that are really out there being used, deployable, and I'm sure as that ever-growing quantity of customers coming through the airport continues, to me, I think it's it's an obvious solution to help address all those points that you raised. I mean, it's almost one of those things where you think, why didn't somebody think of it sooner type thing? And I know you've been working on it for quite a long time, years to get it right and get it where it now is. And perhaps that's the point, really, that it's, they don't happen overnight, these things. But
well, it's mainly been driven, I'd say, by the battery technology. The devices that we have to put into the kiosks themselves can be quite power hungry, and in order to get them the longevity of battery power without being plugged in, you need quite a punchy battery. And only recently has battery technology really got compact enough to put it in and not weigh an absolute ton, because of the heavier they are, the more difficult they are to move around the airport. And there's so many, like we said, there's so many advantages to them. Not only temporarily putting them out to help reduce bottlenecks, but also we're seeing a lot of people, like I said, road testing their setups. It's all well and good modeling on 3D software, but without putting kiosks in new positions in the real world, you only get a computerized guess. Whereas putting them out into the real world in different positions, you can record and you can actually see how people react to them in those positions.
Yeah, it's I think, as I say, I think it's a tremendous solution that you've got there, and I can understand why there's so much interest in it within the poll.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Sandra, how are we doing on those questions?
I have a few more. I'll go ahead and start with the most recent. The question is, are the machine vision solutions available, or is that what imageHOLDERS is developing now?
So the machine vision solution, I'll take that, Christian, if you don't mind,
Sure.
to at least to start with. So the machine vision solution that the Zebra has helped provide to imageHOLDERS is driven by our machine vision software, which we called Aurora Vision, and that's integrated into the imageHOLDERS solution. So the software runs on a device within the platform, within the kiosk or the environment. It can run on Linux, Android, or Windows. It doesn't have to be cloud-based either, by the way, which I know is quite important in a number of environments. But yeah, that technology is not only available now, but it's been around for quite some time. Zebra's been doing this, and through our own developments and acquisitions that we've made over the last few years, we've brought a complete machine vision solution to market. From the OEM part of our business, we OEM that solution into key partners such as imageHOLDERS, who build a complete solution around that to address the customer's requirements. So those absolutely are available, and those solutions that were talked about are available from imageHOLDERS today. Hopefully that addresses the question.
Perfect. Yeah. So the next question is, with the rise of concern of global pandemics, do you see any kind of touchless solutions being developed in the near future at airports?
Yeah, I can take that one. Do I see them being developed? Yeah, there's already touchless solutions out there. Since COVID, the rise and complexity of the biometric user journey has been simplified. So there will be a point in the very near future. I know there are some airports out there in the world that already have this and are road testing, but there will be a full, seamless and contactless passenger journey available to passengers to pass all the way through the airport without having to touch anything. That will be caveated with it's mainly driven by your own device. So we're talking about making sure you're checked in online. You can even do kind of onboarding in terms of biometric programs on your device now, so that everything is done up front. And then when you come in, if you're doing a bag drop, for example, you don't necessarily have to touch anything. You could get your boarding pass on your device. You can scan it without touching anything. The printed boarding pass would be something that is still currently physical. So you would take that, they're sterile anyway. You would put it on your bag. That would pretty much be the only thing that you would have to touch. Your bag then goes, you then go through to security. Again, a biometric point can recognize your face and open a barrier into the security area. Once through security and you head towards your gate, there are biometric gates all over the world at the moment, where again, you don't need to touch anything. You just stand in front of the gate, let it do a quick read of your face. The gates open, and then you're on board to the plane. So, in terms of touchless solutions, yes, there are solutions out there already, and I know for a fact that we are working on a number of those to implement into airports across the world in the very near future.
The next question is, where do you see AI and robotics going to play a role in airport/airline ops in the future?
I can take that one as well if you want. I mean, this is something that is no longer just in sci-fi movies, right? When I started here 10 years ago, it was Minority Report and other sci-fi movies like that showing the art of the possible, and it's now becoming a reality. The realms of automated armies of self-service kiosks being controlled by AI and moved dynamically into position to help alleviate bottlenecks and do things like IROPS. As soon as they happen, even before a human can pick up on it, an AI is monitoring everything, and they already see an issue is going to happen. There's already kiosks self-mobilizing and getting to the position in the airport that they need to do. So, we already have self-driving cleaning bots around airports in the world. So, just wait and see. The kiosks themselves will soon be moving in the same way.
We have a few more. The next question is, there are a number of new dimensioning technologies which we've found to be very expensive, complicated, and unreliable. Why have image holders chosen Zebra over the others, and how is Zebra offering something different?
Someone's been doing their research. I'd say, image holders were out in the market looking for a cost-effective way to offer our customers a solution that does all the benefits, captures the dimensions of luggage, and eliminates the need for those, those horrible steel cages that everyone hates in the airports, things that get your bag stuck into if you've packed a little bit too heavy. But Zebra's software-based solution was the first one we found that essentially enables us to offer this feature to our customers without blowing budgets out of the water. So, cost base is great. It works really well with a simple stereo camera, and isn't too intrusive on the kiosk design itself.
But I think also just to add to that, if I can, I think it's about reliability, I suppose is the word, as well. So we've been doing, as I mentioned earlier, we've been doing this kind of making this kind of technology and developing it, enhancing it, for almost 2 decades now. Primarily, and it certainly initially focused on the manufacturing industry. but we've been able to take that technology and those experiences that we've had and apply it to other sectors. Obviously here, the aviation industry, to give a cost-effective, accurate, easy to set up, easy to use, easy to manage, hardware agnostic solution, which means that ultimately the end customer of imageHOLDERS get a really good return on their investment. I mentioned earlier, it can be used on multiple platforms: Linux, Android, Windows. The product solution, we feel, is very, very flexible. So we have, some people refer to or I've heard it referred to by colleagues, that our software offering, the Aurora Vision software offering, is like a Swiss Army knife. You can pick the elements you need, and that's what makes it flexible, and that's what enables you to utilize the elements of it that are specific to the requirements that you have, but also enables you to expand into other areas should you need to do so, or other functionality in the future. So it's kind of future-proofed as well. But we can do things like, it's specific to this sector and the solutions we're delivering and looking to deliver with imageHOLDERS. We mentioned earlier bounding boxes, the bounding box that we essentially digitally put around a baggage or a bag, and that we can make that bounding box different. We can adjust it. So that could be, as was talked about, different airlines have different requirements, and they can be using the same interface, the same technology from imageHOLDERS, but it can be multiple imageHOLDERS customers, airline operators, using that technology. So we can enable the imageHOLDERS to be able to flex the requirements of the technology it's being used to meet the requirements of those individual customers. So they might have different size requirements for a bag inside the overhead locker, for example. Therefore, you scan your card, you understand what airline you're traveling with, and we can the technology will adapt to look at that in the appropriate way. We can see multiple potential future usage for that as well, as we get into looking at different class of travel. So if you're traveling first class, you have a bigger baggage allowance. Again, the bounding box can be made different. It can change. It can adapt. You can then, all of a sudden, that airline has got all of that data that they can benefit from to enable the customer journey to be better, to make sure they don't have blockages in the system, in the process, but also then to help them look at that data from a back-end perspective and plan for the future. Look at what the data gathers over time across various different flights and airports and so forth. So I think a huge amount of different benefits we can enable by being a very flexible platform is the way I'd sum that up.
We had another question come in just moments ago. It says, can you please describe a little bit more about the accessibility for digitally excluded persons that you had briefly mentioned?
Yeah, sure. So as part of the accessibility trend, one away from kind of able-bodied and less able-bodied users, there are people that might not have a smartphone. They might have lost their phone or iPad where all of their digital boarding cards and travel inventory are on. The battery might be flat. I mentioned earlier how all of the plugs in the airport seem to be taken up by travelers, right, looking for charge. So if you don't have access to your own personal device, all you've probably got on you is your passport, which means you generally need to go to a desk. Now, not every airline has a desk in every airport. And even if they do, you might find that there's nobody there to help you. So by putting kiosks into that airport situation, you essentially replace the person's device with that kiosk in front of you that will give you access to everything you need. So as long as you have your passport, or your ID card, you can log on to your booking, and you will be able to do stuff like, print a physical version of your boarding card, which then means you can get through to the plane. That's kind of what we mean by digital exclusion. Also there's people that aren't digitally literate and that will struggle on small devices with small screens, which is why we try and get nice, big, user-friendly, accessible screens to make it really easy and intuitive to use. Hopefully that answers the question.
I think so. And then I think our last question is, with more passengers using mobile devices, how have Zebra adapted to their scan technology to enable fast, accurate, and reliable reads from devices instead of the paper?
So I guess we've been developing barcode scanning technology for over 60 years now. We've been in this market, and we've consistently been a global leader for that. We continue to evolve our portfolio, working with our partners like imageHOLDERS, understanding what our customers' needs are over time, looking at requirements such as document capture, scanning digital barcodes, e-couponing, e-tickets, loyalty, membership cards, and of course the airlines e-boarding passes, all being done from a digital display. And we've been developing our technologies over the last number of years to move from laser systems to array images to digital scanning. And that's technologies that have additional capabilities, such as which I guess most obvious really for this sector is scanning barcodes from electronic devices, so mobile phones, tablets, and we have specific features integrated into our scanners, such as digital display mode. So that's an enhanced mode which enables the optimum way in which to scan a QR code or barcode from a digital display with minimized decoding issues, taking into account a highly reflective glass screen that is your mobile phone, is your tablet. That can be very difficult, or make it very difficult to read the barcodes, particularly in changing different ambient light environments. So that's something we've spent an awful lot of time on. And I think we have proven technology has been around for a long time. We also keep our technology around for a long time because we understand that once customers have integrated this technology and it's doing the job it's doing, they can't afford for that to be removed and taken away after only a couple of years. So we have a very good longevity of supply and support as well, which is certainly very key to
I'd say from our standpoint as well, the performance of your scanners at Zebra, are great. We never have any issues. We have, the technical expertise in the Zebra team is second to none as well. So from our partnership with Zebra, we always like to work with the best in class, and we firmly believe that on the barcode train, we're working with the best in Zebra.
Yeah, thank you, Christian. I'll buy you a beer. But I know, in seriousness though, I mean, I think that is something we pride ourselves on, is we are a partner-orientated organization, and we have the resources and the support to help our partners to deliver the solutions they require. There's always a challenge of some kind that will catch us all out, and we need to be able to work together to address those challenges for the customers at the end of the day. And that's what we're here to do. And I think together, ourselves and imageHOLDERS do a very good job of that.
Yeah, I was going to add, just as a last point, when you were talking about the Swiss Army knife on your Aurora Vision, essentially we both have the approach of giving the customers and clientele a platform, a flexible, dynamic platform which we can easily tailor and customize without having to go back down to the drawing board and start all over again. The platform is there, and you kind of pick and choose the elements that you need for your solutions. And that's why I think it's a great partnership, and the synergies and approach that we have are really liked by all of our customers.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's a lovely note to end on. Thank you so much, Richard and Christian, for sharing all of your insights today. And thank you to all of our attendees who joined us and for your questions on this session of the future of airport kiosks. We hope that you leave with new ideas on self-service technology and how they can enhance efficiency, accessibility, and the passenger experience.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.